We are. Go ahead.
Now try it.
Brooke Beeman, there we go. Planner with Oldham County Planning and Development Services, as Ms. Fox stated, the applicant is requesting approval of a PUD planned unit development plan for Phase 1 of Norton Commons Hamlet to include 111 single-family residential lots and 5 open space lots on 48.5 acres. The location address given is 6212 Schuler Lane. The parcel ID is 11000014. The existing zoning is PUD, planned unit development. The total acreage of this site is 158.6 acres. They've only brought one phase forward today, and that is 48.5 acres. This is an aerial view of the site in question. You can see outlined in blue is the site owned by Norton Commons LLC. The black line, which isn't super visible on this screen, so I'll sketch it out here. This is the Oldham County, Jefferson County boundary. So you can see this tract borders the Oldham County and Jefferson County line. This is the existing zoning. Portions of this obviously is in Jefferson County, so we don't have the zoning labeled on this map. But you can see there's AG1 to the east and the west of this tract, and the entirety of this tract is zoned PUD, planned unit development. And this is just a zoomed in version. I wanted to show you the entire, or try to encompass some of the existing development of Norton Commons. This is a 2012 flyover, so it's not showing the entire build out, but a portion of Norton Commons is located here. And just a zoomed in version again. The site history: on December 13th, 2005, the Oldham County Planning Commission recommended approval of a zoning map amendment from AG1 to PUD for Norton Commons to Oldham County Fiscal Court. The Planning Commission also approved the master plan for Norton Commons, and Fiscal Court subsequently approved the zoning map amendment request. They've had 5 extension of expiration approvals, and that's of the master plan. This is the first development plan that they're bringing forward. Just wanted to make that clarification. This is the original master plan map that was proposed in 2005. It shows the Oldham County section along with the Jefferson County section. So you can see the hamlet is outlined here, and the rest is all located in Jefferson County. This is another zoomed in version. This is the 2005 plan that was submitted with the master plan. You can see the portion that's colored is the section that is located in Oldham County. And again, as a part of the master plan approval, they were required to submit a conceptual development plan. Most of everything related to lot size, lot width, setbacks, things of that nature are required to stay the same as the master plan, but there are minor changes such as related to green space and orientation that can be moved around a little bit with the development plan submittal. Compliance with the zoning ordinance. This comes from Division 230 PUD, Planned Unit Development, District Item C2. Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing states, this development plan can also serve the purpose of a preliminary plan for subdivisions. The Commission shall review the development plan to determine compliance with the approved master plan, specific guidelines and requirements of this article, and the terms of any prior conditional approval of this project. It goes on to say, if the Commission finds that the development plan is not in compliance with the approved master plan, the applicant may revise the development plan to comply with the approved master plan, apply for an amendment to the approved master plan, or apply for an amendment. The Commission shall then approve the development plan, approve it with conditions, or deny it and state the reasons for denial. So today, you are just reviewing the proposed development plan along with the development plan report for compliance with the existing approved master plan. This is the 2017 phase 1 of Norton Commons Hamlet. It has 111 single-family lots. You can see up in the left-hand corner the section of the entire development that they're proposing today. So I'll let the applicant go over some of the minor changes. I won't go into detail, but basically they're not changing anything related to lot size or anything in the master plan that is required. There are a few items such as green space orientation that they've changed, and they've widened the roadway sections in some places from 48 to 50 feet, which staff did not consider major amendments to the master plan. And I just wanted to help orient you. I know this is a large site and we don't spend a lot of time out here, but I just wanted to show you exactly or approximately where this portion of phase 1 is going to be located. So this is the Oldham County line, Jefferson County line. It'll be the first section abutting Jefferson County. There is no access into the proposed PUD development from Oldham County. The hamlet is only accessible from Jefferson County. This was approved as a part of the original master plan. And you can see there's two portions of this phase that are connected to the Jefferson County side that give access to phase 1. And I've circled those in yellow. The eastern perimeter of Section 1 abutting Meadow Lake Farm will contain a 50-foot perimeter landscape buffer, and that was required as part of the master plan approval, and they did show that on this development plan. Some highlights of the development plan report, which you received in your packets. Just wanted to go over the gross site area, open space, total of lots, and density. The master plan in totality includes 72 acres of open space, 257 total lots, and the maximum gross density is 1.62 density units per acre. Section 1, the gross site area is 48.5 acres. They have 13.5 acres of open space and 111 total lots. And then their gross density is 2.31 density units per acre. So that leaves them with 110 acres in the future to develop. They're required to have 58.5 acres of open space. With the future sections, they'll have an excess of 146 lots, and the future dwelling units per acre that they're required to follow is 1.32. And I just wanted to go over the setbacks of the buildings that were shown in the development plan report. The minimum is 12 feet for the front, maximum is 36 feet. The rear is a minimum of 1 foot. They do have alleys in this development plan, which is why that's a little bit lower than we see most of the time, but this is consistent with what was proposed in the master plan, and the side is a minimum of 5 feet. So just a few pictures. Most of them are in Jefferson County, but I did want to kind of orient you to the site. This is St. Bernadette Avenue connecting to Brownsboro Road. So this will be a major entrance. It's my understanding this will be a major entrance from Jefferson County that will serve the Oldham County portion. If you look at the aerial on the right-hand corner, I've circled it in yellow where this is located, and then I've circled it in yellow on the Norton Commons Hamlet entire master plan. This is the corner of St. Mary's and St. Bernadette Avenue, and again, I've starred those locations on the aerial map and the Norton Commons Hamlet map, and this is just showing, the purpose of this is to show basically how you're getting into the Oldham County side. And this is St. Mary's Lane. Again, it's starred on the aerial map. And not all of their road network for the North Village of Jefferson County has been put in yet, so this is not complete, but at least you get an idea of how they're getting access into the property. This is the gravel road that leads to the existing house, 6212 Schuler Lane. So I've starred on the lower aerials where this is located. To the left here is the Jefferson County section of Norton Commons. To the right Oops, that's a zoomed in picture. So you can see some of the existing housing and the, I think that's part of the North Village. And then this is to the right, so this is the adjoining property owner, Meadow Lake Farm. And it looks like that tree line is the extent of the Meadow Lake Farm property. But you may clarify that with the applicant if you feel that's necessary. So in summary, the plan meets all the requirements of the PUD planned unit development requirements and does not include major modifications from the approved master plan. The applicant is requesting approval of a PUD development plan consisting of 111 single-family lots on 48.5 acres. And I did just want to clarify, after talking with the county engineer about street trees, we've had some discussions. This binding element is proposed, but we did make a minor modification. It reads, all street trees and landscaping, including those in the right-of-way, shall be maintained by the developer and/or homeowners association in perpetuity, even if removed or damaged by the county during maintenance of right-of-way tasks. Location of street trees are to be reviewed and approved by the county engineer and planning staff. That's all that I have.
Okay. Mr. Harris, anything you want to add to this? Okay, good deal. All right. With that, commissioners, any questions for staff? Yes, sir, Mr. Horton.
Thank you. Ms. Weeman, would you go over the open space again, the requirements versus what they have? I didn't get the numbers.
So this comes directly from their development plan report. Currently, so the master plan, there was a required amount of 72 acres for open space. In this section, they're going to include 13.5 acres. So that leaves 58.5 acres that in future phases they will have to include. So phase 2 could have 30 acres and phase 3 could have 28.5. It doesn't delineate how much in each phase they're required to have. It's a total number that they're required to meet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead.
I want to make sure that the planning commission is up to speed on what a plan unit development is and the master plan and that process. And if you have any questions regarding that, it'd be appropriate to ask staff.
Okay.
Kind of to refresh your memory on what it is, if necessary. If not, we can move forward.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Yep. Oh, Mr. Douglas.
Work. Was there, at the TRC meeting,
This didn't go through TRC?
I don't know, did it?
It did not.
It did not.
That's what I'm saying. It didn't go through TRC. It is the next step in the development plan review process.
Okay. I was just curious about how, if anybody from Oldham County Police or how do they get access to patrol that area?
We did get a response from the police chief regarding response time, and it was sent in an email to me the other day, and it really is, let me see here.
I guess assume all emergency services.
It will go through Jefferson County to get there, yes. And the response time might be a little longer because they have to go through the other section of Norton Commons. But because it's in Oldham County, our emergency services will respond.
Okay, thanks.
I think with the exception of Worthington Fire would go in there as part of their fire district, and there's a fire station right down the street.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I guess we'll move into presentation by the applicant or representatives, others in support of the application. Mr. Baxter, I assume you're back up again.
I am, yes, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Barry Baxter, 117 West Main Street. I am the attorney that has the pleasure of representing Norton Commons with regard to this development plan. Pat Dominic is here. He's representing our engineers. And Pat, if I could get you to stand up and be sworn. And then David Toms and Charles Osborne from Norton Commons are also present. I suspect Mr. Toms may answer some questions, so if I could get him sworn as well.
Okay. Ms. Fox?
Do solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I So I will tell you all that normally when I look at one of these things, I go to your all subdivision regs like you all go to your subdivision regs, and I start flipping through and I try to figure that out and try to make sure that everything is in compliance with that. And I made that mistake here. And once I figured out and once I was corrected that in fact what you've got is a planned unit development that was already approved with a master plan in 2005, it was pointed out to me that is what we have to look at to see if in fact my client is doing what they're supposed to be doing in order to get this development plan approved. And I would submit to you that when we finish, there is not going to be any question, but they are doing exactly what they are supposed to do under the master plan that was approved by this body in 2005, and that you all will have really almost no choice after you hear what we say, but to agree that the development plan is in compliance with that master plan and that we've done what we are supposed to do. Mr. Dominican is going to get up. He's going to run through a short PowerPoint presentation. We will address a couple of these concerns. I know Mr. Douglas raised a concern about response times. I can address that, maybe not with how we address response time, but maybe a counter argument to that. And we can address some other concerns that you all may have, but I'm going to turn it over to Pat right now.
Thank you.
Sir, and just name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name's Patrick Dominic. I'm with Sayback, Wilson, and Lingo, 608 South 3rd Street, Louisville, 40202. Our firm has been pleased to be working with Norton Commons since its inception 15 years ago. So we fully know the background, we know the hard work that's gone into this, and the hamlet is an important part of what is a much larger development. And I do want to spend some time because there are some unique details to Norton Commons that I want to try to convey to you as you deliberate this case. I'm going to skim through some of these initial slides because Brooke covered them. Again, this is the site location. I'm not going to get into that again. Here's the existing zoning. Again, you can see the site zone PUD. This is the aerial, the same thing Brooke had. Might be a little bit more current aerial photo, but you can see the site is still undeveloped, rolling farmland, mostly, very few trees on the property. This is where I'd like to start my comments. This is the overall plan for Norton Commons. And we're oriented a little differently. The hamlet is, of course, on the left here. But this is a fairly current representation of the development activity that has occurred at Norton Commons in Jefferson County over the last 15 years or so. Each of the dark lines indicates a separate section that was approved and recorded. In the original PUD report that went in back in 2006 that this commission approved, we talked a lot about the philosophy of Norton Commons, that it's a pedestrian-oriented neighborhood. There were essentially 3 villages, and I'm going to outline them here. There's the South Village, there's the North Village, and then there's the hamlet. Each of these villages has what we call a village center. And in those areas, roughly, are some more intense mixed uses, higher density residential, things you would typically find in a downtown or a small urban village. As you radiate out from that village center, you can see the colors are sort of a darker gray. Then you're going to go to a medium gray, and that's what we call the village general. These are a little bit larger lots, typically more single family in nature. Really the bulk of Norton Commons is comprised of this village general area. But the important part of these villages is you can walk from anywhere within these villages. It's a 5-minute walk to downtown. So people living in the fairly developed area here of South Village, anybody living right here can walk to downtown where you have the shops, you have the park, all the events they hold during the summer. That in and of itself is a very unique form of development, not only for Oldham County, but for Jefferson County too. And to do that, we had special zoning that we had adopted in Jefferson County. It's called a Planned Village District, and it sort of incorporated all of those sorts of mixed uses, the streetscape design standards, the alleys. The way the hamlet is situated, we are what's referred to as a village edge type of development, meaning on the perimeter. You can see in the plan, all the lots are white, and that matches sort of the white perimeter areas that you see in Norton Commons. These are typically larger lots, all single family in nature, a lot of park and open space areas. But again, you're in a 5-minute walk of each of these village centers. In 2006, when we came before you, originally with the PUD, Norton Commons was about 4 years old because the PUD in Jefferson County was approved in 2002. So as development was continuing, we were still sort of in its infancy at that point in time. But we knew what we wanted the hamlet to look like. And that prompted the opportunity to go ahead and, under your PUD provisions, seek approval at that time for the hamlet. And there's a lot of talk in here. The initial part of the original master plan talks a lot about the philosophy of this form of development and the walkable nature of the community, the houses up close to the street, so it's inviting, it's a friendly place to walk around. It's not car-centric, it's more people-centric. So the master plan was approved in 2006. I'm going to skip through that. This is the hamlet plan that was approved in 2006, and you can see there's a lot of green space on there. We are going to focus pretty much in this area. And you can see there's, relatively speaking, the amount of open space is going to be much greater in future sections. There's a large swath of wooded stream valley and things further off to the north, and those will be part of future development sections. As part of this plan, our open space includes mostly a series of interior open space greens and parks is what we like to call them. And I'll talk about those in a minute. But this was the original plan that was contemplated in 2006. I want you to focus on this area right in through here. That was part of the large, one of the green spaces that were central. We had a lot of streets kind of coming together, and that was our thought at the time. I'm going to skip through that. You obviously know that the plan was approved in 2006, but this is a blow-up of that area. And you can see there's a confluence of intersections right in the middle, and there were actually 4 smaller green areas. I'm going to just toggle back and forth here so you can see the same area. If you focus into the middle and the green space here, that's what we're proposing now. We've moved the road sort of to the outside. All of the houses will be facing the park. We have a much more substantial green space area, and that was one of our fundamental changes on the plan. You see another green space over here, again, a little more significant in size. You can see the previous plan had a little bit more fragmented open space, and we felt that this was maybe a much better use of open space, both for the neighborhood itself and particularly for the houses that face on that. The plan, this is a summary of that. You can see the breakdown is exactly what Brooke presented. You see, we have 13 and a half acres of open space this phase, which is still 32% of the total. But a lot of open space will come about in future sections because of the undeveloped stream valleys and things that will be part of that. The entire hamlet is single-family detached housing. That is somewhat unique. Your PUD allows for a mix of uses. You can do some commercial and business uses the way your ordinance is written. The value to Norton Commons in going to a PUD was we had some flexibility in the lot sizes, how we could design the neighborhood. And we felt that was the best tool to sort of incorporate some of the practices that we were doing in Jefferson County with alleys, with narrow setbacks, different lot sizes and different dimensions. So that was part of the rationale back in 2006. All of that is fundamentally unchanged with this development plan. One of the things that did change, we actually had approved in the master plan 48-foot right-of-ways. We have some of those actually in Norton Commons, but in reviewing the standards and reviewing how we've designed streets in some later phases, and of course looking at your county road standards, we didn't see any reason to not go to 50 feet. Those would be fully compliant then with your county road standards. So it's only 2 feet, but what we're able to do with that, with the extra 2 feet, is we've got both a 6 and 7 foot, what I call a verge strip between the back of curb and sidewalk, and that becomes a little bit more generous with a 50-foot right-of-way than it did with a 48. So that's another one of the fundamental changes. So both open space changed a little bit and the street standards changed. I thought the best way to talk with you about some of the standards that we're talking about with the first phase of development is to actually show pictures of Norton Commons. All of the images that I'm going to show you are of Norton Commons. So, you know, what better way to tell you what we're going to do than to show you what we've done? And in this case, the streetscape standards, we're going to be all curb and gutter. All the streets will have sidewalks on both sides. I talked about the 6 to 7 foot verge strip that will accommodate street trees. All the street tree plantings in the public right-of-way will be maintained by the property owner. And of course, the sidewalks allow people in the hamlet that 5-minute short walk to get to the town center, the village center in the North Village. A couple of site design standards. This is a typical block, the top photo. These are smaller lots, by the way, than what we're doing in the hamlet. But you can see the way the frontage street is situated to the left there, and then the alley between, and the sidewalk pattern associated with that. Instead of the 60-foot wide lots or 40 to 60-foot wide lots that we're doing in Jefferson County, one of the things we always envisioned with the hamlet was these would be slightly larger lots to accommodate bigger houses, maybe a slightly different feel than very similar character, but maybe a slightly different feel than what we're doing in Jefferson County. So the lot sizes will range from 60 to 90 feet in width, and the depths from 100 to 140 feet in width. The yard requirements are the same as what we talked about in the master plan. A 12-foot front yard may not sound like a lot, but again, the whole focus of our neighborhood is to move houses closer to the street, so you have a lot more of that interaction as you walk around. And anybody who walks through Norton Commons any day during the week or on the weekend is going to see exactly what we're talking about. There's a lot of life in the neighborhood as you walk through that, and that's what we want to accomplish here in the hamlet. The maximum is a 2.5-story height. These are samples of some of the types of architecture, and I'm going to get into that in a minute, but again, some of the houses that we're talking about and what they will look like, and in particular, the orientation with the street in front facing open space in most cases. It's just the reverse of what you see in a lot of conventional developments, where you have the street, the house, and then open space areas that are only open onto the patio or deck or the back part of the house. By situating the open space in the front of the house, we feel it becomes more public, and it's used that way. So that's one of the fundamental differences, again, that we are looking for with the hamlet. Building design standards. I brought this little pamphlet with me, and I only get to see this on very rare occasions. This is the Norton Commons Building Code. And while we've tried to summarize in the development plan report a lot of aspects of design dealing with exterior wall materials, fencing, all the various standards, all of these are very heavily regulated in Norton Commons. And this is the document that does this. This is a proprietary package. It cost an awful lot of money to prepare. It's been implemented to a T, and you see what Norton Commons has become largely because of the detail that's in this design code. There's everything in here that you can imagine. How the columns are supposed to look on the front of the house, the height to width ratio on windows and doors, materials, everything you can think of in terms of the design of a single-family house is contained in here. And all of the builders adhere to these requirements. And I'm going to talk to you about how that happens here in just a minute. But this is the product that you get with that much effort put into design and detail. With the open space, I mentioned the concept of greens and parks as they are located on the streets where the houses are facing these green areas. Norton Commons has these situated all over the neighborhood. We will have these at the hamlet. We have that large green space in the center of the plan that I referred to before, and a smaller one off to the east. But these are actual green spaces in Norton Commons, and it's exactly what we envision at the hamlet. Most importantly, and I wanted to make sure, there is a lot of open space. How that is maintained, again, if you drive through there, there's an impeccable maintenance regime that Norton Commons employs. And the grass is cut. These open space areas are true amenities to the neighborhood. Because they're in the front and visible on the street, it requires that high degree of maintenance. And the only way we can ensure that's going to happen, all of these spaces are maintained by the Norton Commons Foundation, which handles and manages, maintains, cuts grass, provides all the maintenance for every bit of open space at Norton Commons. The building code that we have here is implemented by the town architect. And again, this is a somewhat unique aspect to private development. What we have is an in-house architect. I'm not going to say in-house, but Mike Watkins is the design architect, and he has been with Norton Commons for the full 15 years. And his role is to make sure the builders comply with our regulations. They not only look at compliance with the code, but they're going to review new products, innovative materials, and any other minor alterations. And the important thing to note about all of that is before the builder comes to Oldham County, applies for a building permit, that permit drawing will have a stamp by the town architect. That's a very big deal to us. That's a very big deal to the developer, because it says this plan has complied with all of the standards that we have at Norton Commons. So it can go to the Oldham County Building Department, get a permit, and we can move on. That's exactly how we've operated in Jefferson County and how we intend to operate in Oldham County. Stormwater management is always a big deal. The hamlet has a lake that is part of the initial first phase. This is in the southwest portion of the site. Let's see if I can go back to the plan. Basically, here's that lake, back in here. It drains a portion of the, it's going to drain a portion of the hamlet. A lot of Jefferson County goes in there. This is a photo. It was built this spring. A couple of things on the design standard of the lake. Our direction from our client was, I want a big lake. I want a lake that's going to be an amenity. I don't want a hole in the ground that's going to silt up. I want something deep enough that water is going to continue to flush it, and it will be an asset for all of the real estate that's going in around it. So while that was the mandate that we got from our client, when we looked at the numbers and what our detention requirements are, what our water quality volumes are, those became important components of the plan, but the size of the lake is far in excess of what's needed to manage our stormwater on site. It's a 4-acre lake. We have 4 bays at a couple of locations. In these locations, they will be temporary sediment basins, so that will polish stormwater before it enters the lake, and that's particularly important during the construction cycle, while we've got a lot of dirt and a lot of disturbed areas upstream. But the watershed is large. It's 174 acres. We have a 5 to 8 foot depth pool in there. But the important thing is the size of the lake, the volume of that we can accommodate there is going to reduce post-developed runoff to about 50 to 60% of the pre-developed rate, which actually means we're going to produce less runoff leaving the property than what's going there now. The pond, again, we have a lot of talk about, you're probably hearing a lot about water quality and MS4 requirements and all of those kind of new regulations. This pond fully complies with those requirements because the 4-bay will be planted and serve as sort of a pre-treatment regime for runoff before it hits the lake. And there's no better water quality than to have a lake of this size with this depth, because that helps all the sediments and impurities filter out before it leaves the property. It's much different than a dry basin or some other type of facility. So we think we've complied fully with Oldham County standards, and we had all the permits and approvals necessary to construct that. Like I say, I think that was started this spring or late winter and was completed here fairly recently. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but there were a lot of agency and utility company letters that came in. Let me go back and talk about the plan here again. I neglected to mention one aspect of this. In the streets that are in the front of the house, the utilities we have there are going to be sanitary, sewer, and water. Gas, electric, telephone, cable, all of that goes in the alley. That's part of the reason why we have a 30-foot private access and utility easement. So the utility companies, this was a pretty novel approach for them 15 years ago. They're very comfortable with that now, and that's why we've had no problem getting consent letters from the utility companies to provide service. The Worthington Fire Department, which has a home in Norton Commons, is very close and can easily provide fire protection for this development. The water company's letter is there. There was an email we got from the police department, and this may not be the closest, the most recent thing. This came fairly early on, and was something about a letter not needed, observations to be sent to staff prior to today. So I'm presuming they made some comment to you today, although we haven't seen that. Addressing will be assigned at the record plat stage. That's what that comment was about. We did receive a school letter, I think Friday, and the Oldham County Board of Education approved the Phase 1 plan without any particular phasing requirements. They have adequate capacity to provide service to the kids in the hamlet. I do want to spend some time talking about sanitary sewers. Again, well, this is the original master plan. This is a sewer exhibit. This was part of the overall hamlet PUD plan that was in the original master plan back in 2006. And there's a sanitary sewer schematic on that plan. And what it shows is basically a lot of gravity service lines. Some of the gravity flow from this part of the development, maybe right in through here, is going into gravity systems this way. The rest of the property is going to drain to a pump station, which is going to be located at that point, and it will pump to a large pump station that was built before the first home was completed back in 2002. The pump station itself is 2.7 million gallon per day. It was sized for the hamlet, and it was approved that way. This is a configuration that kind of shows you the sanitary sewer concept. It shows the pump station here. The green line is a 12-inch force main, and all of that effluent gets pumped directly to the Hyde Creek treatment plant, which is down in the lower right-hand corner. It was a considerable investment made by the developer, as a lot of these upfront developments are. Expenditures were. A development of this size, built over this many years, required a really significant upfront investment. The roads had to all be widened, but in addition, before the first toilet could flush in Norton Commons, $800,000 in infrastructure was installed to accommodate that. And of course, all the lines had to be brought out there. So a relatively inefficient means of construction, but nonetheless representing a significant investment to the developer. The red line is also, if you see on here, is the sewer service area. So the hamlet was included in that pump station sewer service area, and that was approved by MSD and the Kentucky Division of Water. There is, of course, as you're aware, there's an interlocal agreement. There was an amendment to that just approved in November 17th of last year. A couple of minor changes, but basically it's the compact between MSD and OSEA regarding sewer capacity, treatment, and sort of this in the form of this interlocal agreement. As stipulated in the agreement, it also had to go to the Attorney General's office for approval, and that letter is on your right. In addition to that, as we've done with every subsequent section we've done with Norton Commons, we've applied for capacity through MSD, and we did that in this case also. On August 8th, MSD responded to the applicant that they do have sewer capacity available for all 111 homes in the development area. We're not surprised by that because everything we built to this date accommodates all of this. So with that, I want to hearken back to what Barry said. Everything we've said we would do, both in Jefferson County in 2002 and in 2006 with the PUD master plan, we have done. And while we did have to ask some extensions, it's no secret to anybody, the economy went south for quite a few years, so development slowed down. We are now at the point where we're getting up to the hamlet, and we're envisioning construction of the first section here, hopefully before the end of the year, with your consent and approval of this Phase 1 development plan. So with that, that concludes my presentation.
Let me ask you a couple things, if
Sure.
I could.
Yes.
when the findings and decisions were rendered in 2005, it indicated that one of the conditions of approval was a stub road must be provided into Oldham County land north/east of the proposed development for a future roadway connection so that it can be logically extended, and this connection must be reviewed and approved by the county engineer. Does the plan that you have brought and you've talked about today, it includes the stub road, does it not?
The stub road is included right there.
Okay, so we have complied with, there was three binding elements, but that one in particular is one that's shown on the plan.
That's correct.
Okay, and then you also, I want you to just, again, kind of highlight for us, we've included an area, a large area of open space here, and that is not something that's ever going to be developed, correct?
That is correct.
And actually, it flows a little bit further back into this area, correct?
That's correct.
And then we have substantial areas of open space that, and I probably shouldn't be put right in there, that are depicted on the future areas, right?
Yes,
Okay, and as you've talked about this today, what we're envisioning is 111 units, but the 111 units are going to be probably in 3 separate phases that we're going to work. And the reason that I understood that to be is that, and I'm just kind of generally speaking, this area, and I may be a little off, is gravity fed to existing MSD lines in Jefferson County.
it's actually a little more than that. You know, it may be more something like this. All of that is
Okay.
gravity into Jefferson County.
Okay, so to work roughly 40 units, which was what was approved on the school phasing under the master plan, to work on 40 units, we would be looking at this part that's going to be the gravity-fed part, and then as we work further back towards the back, it's going to require that pump station that you talked about.
That is correct.
Okay. So the vision is, again, like most developments, I mean, we're going to work from what we would consider the front to the back, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I think those are the questions that I would have needed you to clarify. Have a seat. I'm going to address a couple other points.
I'm
if I
happy to
could,
hand this around if anybody wants to look.
but you can't keep it. Here we go. Mr. Falvey would like to take a look at it if he could. So you had asked a staff question, Mr. Horton, about the open space, and I'm hoping that we're kind of addressing how we got to those calculations and why we've got a lot more open space in the back and what's going to come online in the back. Mr. Douglas, you were addressing the issue as it relates to police protection and response time and that kind of thing. And I can't change the way that the flow works. I think what I would say to you is this is not a unique situation. There are other examples of this. For example, you know, you can get to Glen Oaks by Oldham County roads, but that may not be the quickest way for them to get there. And for example, if you've got an officer that's coming from the north side of the county and he's going to come across 1694 to get to Oldham County or to get to Moser Farms, he's going to by definition have to go on Jefferson County roads. And it's just the nature of the way that this development is going to work. So, you know, this is not something that's unusual. I can tell you that, you know, that they have constructed this lake to try to address. I know that, as is often the case when Norton Commons comes up here, I looked in the minutes from 2005, and oddly enough, Mr. McAuliffe, who's here today to speak about our development, he spoke on that day. And so, you know, he's going to get up and I hope he's going to say nice things about us. I think last time he said he was going to say nice things about us, and then he said some things that weren't so nice, but nonetheless, you know, we've tried to address the concerns that typically get raised when that he has, particularly to do with stormwater. We've tried to comply with that. That's why this lake was sized the way it was, and hopefully that approval that we got on that is going to put a lot of those kinds of concerns to rest for you guys. We're glad to answer any questions that you've got, but I think we have complied with our master plan. I think. Okay, so there is one other thing, and this may be this is more of a question for you, Jim. It says in the PUD regulations that we have to get construction plans put to record within 2 years from this approval. But the way that we are planning on doing this, we have to phase this. I mean, we're required to phase it, so we're going to phase as we go forward, so it may be a little bit longer than that, and we're trying to get some clarification about that. That was something they raised, and I should have brought that to your attention before.
Well, that's something that we have been working on with the study review committee to change because, and I'll use Hillcrest as an example. There are 400 houses in Hillcrest, and if you applied that requirement, all 400 houses in all phases has to be done in 3 years. So we understand that there's kind of a math problem with that. And so as long as you're bringing in a construction plan, get approval, and move to record plat, and then do construction plan and record plat approval, each phase can go forward.
Okay, so we just wanted to make sure, because that's what the rules say, and the master plan obviously is subject to those PUD rules, and we wanted to make sure that we were upfront about that, so. But we'll be glad to answer any questions you've got. I think we are in compliance with our master plan, and if you've got questions about that original plan or the development plan that we proposed today, we're glad to answer anything that you've got.
Okay?
Thank you.
So that completes your presentation to this point? All right. With that, do we have anyone here that would like to speak in support of this application? Anyone to speak in support of? Okay, don't see anybody getting up here. We'll now move into testimony and questions by those opposing the application. Is there anyone here that has questions? I see Mr. McAuliffe hold his hand up. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Okay. I see two. Is there anyone else that would like to speak, either have questions or testimony in opposition? Okay, if I get both of you all to stand up and get you sworn in, and then we'll get your name and address for the record. Ms. Fox?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Whoever would like to go first. Okay.
Well, they're getting ready. You know, I want to make sure that because you showed us that Norton Commons architectural guidelines, we would like to get a copy of the cover and the table of contents for the record. We don't necessarily need an entire copy of it, but just because it was referenced, at least if we can get the cover, and it would be great if we could get the table of contents.
Okay. Mr. McAuliffe, name and address, please.
My name is Bob McAuliffe, 11608 Hidden Creek Road, Prospect, Kentucky. First of all, I wanted to stand up and thank all of y'all for being citizens. And so it's a beautiful little model that's set up. We got fiscal court, we got government, we got all those people, but you all are a separate body. You're one of us. And you're here to listen to the concerns that all the neighbors express on all the issues. So I appreciate that fact and what y'all do. And then also I'm gonna make a recommendation for y'all have boxed lunch on long days like this. So let things get right through.
Yes, I agree.
Also, I want to say to the applicant, I've been a supporter of Norton Commons from the very first day. When the first meeting was at, on Frankfurt Avenue, I forgot the name of the church there, but you know, I've been a supporter from day one. I think it's a consensus among our immediate neighbors that we see that they're a quality developer. They have high standards. They do good work. They have good professionals. They manage and monitor their work. And so I want to set that up for the record. And then Mr. Baxter is a great attorney. He has represented me. Now, my name came up earlier, and so I felt like, you know, I had to digress a little bit. I was here in 2005 representing a Jefferson County property owner that had no stake and no ability to communicate to y'all. And he didn't have standing here. He did not have anybody. And what it was about was a watershed. And it's a Joe Bell Farm. It's a beautiful little waterfall to this day. And I don't know if y'all can switch to that. But this is the watershed. And obviously everyone, most Jim Urban and other people know that I've been very active in MS4 program and stormwater management. The quality of photographs not great, but it's a beautiful waterfall. It's pretty much virgin today. It has really no development on it, no activities, and certainly that is a concern. Now, So with that, what I want to do is just go ahead and run through a presentation that I put together to try to be efficient with you all and to roll through it. So basically, I'm going to make sure this is the first time using this. I'll try to do this for you all. So I got to go down. So yeah, I've got it down left. Okay, great. Okay. So first of all, what I want to do is introduce Hidden Creek. We're a neighborhood. We're the closest neighborhood that is adjacent to Jefferson County in the development of Norton Commons. I think procedurally, we did not get notification. It'd been nice, but we're the closest property owner, closest neighborhood. I'm going to outline the changes that have taken place since since the Hamlet PUD was approved in 2006. I'm going to discuss the efforts of the residents that in the area to try to facilitate planned growth and the efforts that we put out to work with planning and zoning, fiscal court, magistrates, judges, etc. And then I'm going to present our concerns and goals. Just to introduce, the Hidden Creek is right here. This is a subdivision. There's 22 lots in there. It's mostly equine facility. We're all horse-boarded fences. We're all 5 acres and more. There's 20, so, you could say there's 110 acres there. In fact, Mr. Osborne is seeking to purchase a home in our neighborhood. That's how nice it is. Now, he's got a heck of a development, but he wants a piece of property in our development. We've obviously had a lot, so then to orient you, then there's another issue here that this is the Fisher Farm, Meadow Lake Farms that's been referenced. That property has been all up for contract twice now. That is in Jefferson County. This is another piece of property here that's owned by Mr. Fisher. And as well, each of those tracts substantially large. Potential development on those is pretty massive in the number, but that's the first thing. Then there's another property right here. This is St. Mary's Church, right in this area. It's pointing instead of drawing. Do you know how to draw? Okay, all right. And then obviously this is the Norton Commons development here, and as you can see, it is like I said, it's really nicely planned, very well done. The difference is what we're here today is that's been a Jefferson County process, and now we're into Oldham County. So this is a map that the applicant showed of the current that's with the application, and you can see that this is the county line right here, and this area didn't draw, but I live in this property and in this lot as well. So you can see relatively, we're pretty close. We're also on the back end of Schuler Lane. So that's our general proximity. This area is the hamlet right here. And the hamlet contributes to the watershed. You can see the watershed goes this way, the watershed goes that way, and then the waterfall is approximately right there. Let me clear. Got it. Changes since the HUD was approved in 2006. Since 2006, the Oldham County Parks and Master Plan was approved in 2008. Oldham County Bike, Pedestrian, and Greenways Trails Plan was approved in 2008. The Brownsboro Master Plan was approved in 2009. That's the only master plan that the community completed that's under our comprehensive plan. I was a member on that. I think that was a 5-year process. That got approved after this hamlet was approved. The Stormwater Ordinance MS4 Phase 2 program was passed in March 1st, 2010. The Oldham County Comprehensive Plan was updated in 2014. We've had wholesale changes in government. We've had 3 judges that takes place. Planning commissioners are all different. I think except for Mrs. Crosby, who was the only one I think was here in 2005. I may be wrong. Were you here? Okay, so there's 3 of you here. So most of you didn't hear the previous testimony. And certainly we know why they had to get it approved at that time. They just need to have the plan so that, they had to go early and get a plan approved, and then they had to go for extensions and because they just didn't have the infrastructure and the roads to get to there. That's what we're into the middle of now. We've had, planning commission changes, we have fiscal court representative changes, and the most importantly, if you think of it in big terms, 10 years ago, we had the iPhone. It seems crazy, but a lot has changed. We've had 3 presidents of the United States, a lot's changed. So now we got this plan, y'all are being asked to approve it with all these changes and with all the effort that the communities, let me just go back, all the effort that the community and people in Oldham County have tried and updated plans and worked with that and worked with staff and participated in meetings and sessions. So actually, since 2006, I've been working on the MS4 Phase 2 program, or 2005, basically. But basically, on 10/30 in 2015, we've met with Judge David Vogel about the need for more roads now that because Oldham County, Jefferson County allowed them to close Chamberlain Lane. So we met with the David Vogel, Jim Urban, number of people, and I have those some of the emails, exhibits and stuff in here. In 11/16, John Black had met with Jefferson County, and because we wanted to try to work with Jefferson County, Oldham County, because this is all sitting on Jefferson County line, and we wanted to get a small area study going so we could understand traffic, so we could all how are we going to deal with this. The biggest thing that really is we're on a little farm road called Schuler Lane. Schuler Lane, I'll show it on a map in a minute, but it has all that potential development on it, and it only has one way to get in and one way to get out. And it's on a dangerous corner. It's got a school there, and we've obviously seen quite a bit of traffic. So 11/30/15, John Black sent out an email in 2/3/2016. We sent myself and other neighbors. I had a conversation with David Toms about, hey, we really want to see something different. Obviously, there was Mr. Fisher's property, the Meadow Lake Farms at that time, really has not been a part of this plan, but it really needs to be part of this plan. It needs to be a comprehensive plan, because I don't know the acreage, and so I don't want to get caught off guard here, but there's 600 or 700 acres off back Schuler Lane. And we know it's all going to get developed, but we want to know how we're all going to get out of there. How are we going to be protected? What is our lifestyles going to be like? Are we still going to be able to ride the horse trails that we ride on? And what is the resources? Really, we've got, with the YMCA, 2 schools, all the density of Norton Commons, our neighborhood's changed with everyone coming back and using our neighborhood, the bicycle, run on. I mean, it's changed. It's a massive change that we've gone through. So I could go through a litany of files and emails, correspondences, meetings, discussions, et cetera, about getting a small area study to go through. And so we can really quality develop the rest. If they were given the Meadow Lake Farm property and it was theirs, they didn't have to pay for it, go through all of it, we'd sit down with an excellent land designer and we'd all come up with a comprehensive plan. How are we going to deal with all this back here? How are we dealing with traffic, schools? I mean, we probably need enough, with 800 acres, 3 units per acre is what they're at right now. But if you only just did 1, that's an elementary school back in there now. And it would prevent everybody from having to go all the way down the most dangerous road in the world, which is Highway 1694. Really most dangerous to transport children. So our concerns: if Norton Hamlet is approved as it is proposed, it would suffocate and pinch off all future development in a single exit on Schuler Lane. And it's at Highway 1694. St. Mary's Church is already there. It affects us. We got to deal with the crossing guard. They stop traffic to get everybody out. So we can't imagine what the rest of the development area will look like at some point in time. Concerns number 2, Norton Commons has already deviated from the 2006 development plan without planning commission approval by installing a stormwater basin in the early spring of 2016. There wasn't discussed in here, but there it was. I'll point the map out. But I think this body is the only body that can is authorized to make a change in a map. You are the only ones, and they deviated, and that's shown. And I will go through the evidence on that. Concerns number 3, the Norton Commons Hamlet stormwater will impact lasting negative consequences on the downstream waterways and natural resources, i.e. Bells Falls and westward tributary of the Harrods Creek. There's an old road, just to give you an idea. I'll show you a picture of how much water is going to come out of this development. But we ride horses down in the Harrods Creek watershed down there, and there's a little tiny bitty stream that comes out in the bottom that comes off of where they're draining this lake. And that's way over in Jefferson County, but it's an area where we probably won't be able to get across in general, but it would have negative effects there. Concern number 4, Planning Commission and planning and zoning officials should have required that this plan have been submitted to TRC prior to this hearing due to that over 11 years have gone by and so many changes in the Planning Commission members, elected officials, our regulations. Concern number 5, the applicant didn't solicit or have a neighborhood meeting or anything to introduce themselves to the Oldham County residents that live most close by, and how will we, what are our thoughts and visions, and how do we work together? Our goals. My goal is the Planning Commission, goal number 1 is defer approval until all stakeholders can be assembled and to facilitate discussions and ideas. Goal number 2, Planning Commission endorse area residents' concerns related to traffic and egress issues at intersection of Highway 1694 and Schuler Lane. Goal number 3, that the Planning Commission recommends that a small area study be conducted, including area residents, neighbors, and Oldham and Jefferson County officials, because that's what's so important here. This is Jefferson County, Oldham counties, right there. We're all sitting on the boundary. Goal number 5, Norton Commons development, provide more bicycle and pedestrian trails to mitigate utilization of Hidden Creek. Norton Commons is a great development, very urban setting style. The hamlet may be a little less dense, slightly, but it's a sidewalk development. And you don't see bikes zipping through Norton Commons. You don't see bikes up on the sidewalks. And it's really a walking area. That's what it is. So there's no outlet for that. And so as a result, we think it's really important that our trails plans and components of that need to be put in. Now, they have some trails that they're proposing, but there wasn't any discussion of that today. And also the lake was installed in the middle of one of them. But we would encourage a little bit more comprehensive look at the parks. Now, the trails. So here, this is a map that I presented to Mr. Urban, David Vogel, Bob Dye, Steve Greenwell, and to assemble a group of us to talk about what do we do? How do we grow this area in the back? And so I had proposed, and it's called, I had proposed a road. This is a simple little sketch where you can see that Norton Commons is all down here. And the unique thing that happened is that anybody coming from our area, and this little, I believe that dot is my property right there. But Schuler Lane, I'm going to try to get it on the map, comes down right there, here, back, and then comes in and hits our circle. So we are blocked by. So I proposed, so we got St. Mary's Church at the corner of the intersection. School crossing guards, to traffic control. This is Norton Commons. And Norton Commons uniquely, I'm trying to pinpoint it, y'all may be able to help me, but I believe this was the old Chamberlain Lane that used to go across there. What's unique is Norton Commons has most of its infrastructure and most of its assets on transportation exiting on Highway 1694, Brownsboro Road. That's the majority of their entrances. So what I was proposing is that Jefferson County gave them the right to close that road. And they've incorporated in, and it's now, they provided 5, I think, new points to get through, but it's all pretty much a filter. It's not an access road to go through there. So what I proposed is that right here is approximately the end of Chamberlain Lane. So I proposed, and this is for future, and even if Norton Commons, if their land planners said, hey, we're developing the rest of this property back here too, then my recommendation is to balance the traffic, let's get a road that would come off of the old Chamberlain Lane, run around here, stub into what is one farm that's about 400 acres, another 100 acres right there, and then that would allow this Mr. Fisher's property, which is this, it would allow all that to develop. And you'd have then you could stub off of it, and it doesn't need to be a new high-speed road. It just needs to be a road with, like what we have in Glen Oaks. I heard Glen Oaks come up earlier.
hey, the difference between Glen Oaks and Norton Commons is vast. The density is different. When you're trying to drive through Glen Oaks, pretty high speeds can go through Glen Oaks. When you're talking about driving through Norton Commons, you're 15 miles an hour, and you're dangerous at 15. Really, that's you know. So it's not an access, it's not a relief. So the neighbors, so myself, a number of other neighbors, we presented this plan as we were trying to be proactive. How do we get something going? And the biggest thing is everything is limited by the access out onto 1694 and Schuler Lane at that point. If the hamlet is allowed to be developed as proposed, it blocks everything right there. Now, one thing that's being pointed out is they were required to have a stub road. I'll go into that detail a little bit more, but that stub is not a road, and I'll point that out. So then, this is another document that I prepared, that attached and included with all the Mr. Urban, that the judge, all the representatives, and we proposed new roadway, Chamberlain Lane. I know that Mr. John Black spoke to David Toms. I know there was a lot of discussions about that when I prepared this plan. I'm not an engineer. I wanted to have a real engineer to come up with a concept, come up with a plan. Is it viable? Can it work? What's it look like? Is it going to do anything? So this is one of the documents we proposed. Proposed a new road, and then now this is a unique piece here. And this shows the whole development plan. And what I outlined, what the hamlet is over here. And this is St. Mary's. And this plan is not totally dead accurate. But what if you are a bus driver in Oldham County, coming to pick up kids in Oldham County, you got to follow this blue line. You got to come in either here or come in here. Now there are other options, but the more you come back here, you're more into a pretty urban setting. So then you would come down right past St. Mary's School, you turn in, you come up here, you go do all the things you got to do, and then you got to come back out one of those 2 points. And you don't have a very good choice when you come out at one of those 2 points. The bus driver right here would come up. He's not going to take that road because that's where everybody's going into St. Mary's School. St. Mary's School, tremendous amount of traffic that comes into St. Mary's School, backs up on Highway 1694. So this is backing up all the way from here to get into the school. So he has to turn left and go across. The other option is for him to go through an even more little park area and try to turn out here, but he's still got to turn and try to go left. Now, the reality is we should just take all that, we really should just make that land Jefferson County and let all of them go to Jefferson County schools, and it would just be a whole lot easier than trying to take those kids all the way through 1694. So that's really, and then this is the approved plan. Now, the approved plan, ultimately, there's binding element to put a stub roads in at the little gravel road, but pretty much you can see the reason why you got all the green on the outer edges. This is where there's a spring. All this is beautiful, natural fed, slow moving, very flat, wide open areas. But this is the stream that starts as a drop, and as you follow it, it makes its way to a waterfall. And it functions like God created it. And it's beautiful. There's no paper trash, no cups, no nothing in it. Now, what's different here, and this is not a screen that can blow in large. This is where there's been a change. Right there is a map amendment. That is a detention basin, or it's a stormwater facility that was, as Mr. Dominic testified, primarily for Jefferson County. Primarily for Jefferson County. I don't know, I'm not an engineer. I'm sure our county engineer will look into this, but that is the approved plan. This is the plan they proposed. If I blew this up, you'd see that just a relic. There's some artifacts of the old trail still going through the stormwater facility. And you know, I'm not going to criticize any of the other pieces of it. Beautiful, beautiful site design. Works with the topography. And I think Stuart Strickler in the school board, Oldham County School Board, submitted in 2005. His biggest concern was that how do we get these kids to Oldham County schools? through the high density of the development. I've not seen that addressed. But again, if we'd had a TRC, technical review committee, filter this through, get everybody involved, get the neighbors involved, may have gotten some answers, may have gotten some changes. So this North Lake is a totally new facility, and I believe only you all can approve the map amendment, not the county engineer, not the planning and zoning, not members of fiscal court. You all are the only ones that can do that. That's my understanding. So this slide doesn't point out, I'm gonna have to, it didn't get captured correctly. This is this is their application. And I'm gonna run through this quickly. This was all in the application, but most importantly, I wanna point this out to you. And if you look at the heading, and this is what's in the staff's file. This is in, and the highlighting is done by staff. Is that all? Do I need to turn it? No. Should I turn it and then you rotate it? Okay. Okay. This is the Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, Division 230, PUD Planning Development Unit District, and the highlighting is staff. But I want to make a point, and this is this item here, a development plan for all of a PUD or a section of a PUD shall be submitted for approval within 24 months of the date of the master plan. The development may request an extension in writing to the commission prior to the expiration of for an additional 12 months. That's 3 years. 2 subsequent requests may be in writing for additional periods of time no more than 12 months. So it says from 2006, 2011, my understanding is that all the extensions wouldn't have no meaning and would be expired. But then another point is item number 2. The Technical Review Committee. The development plan for the entire PUD site or any one phase of the PUD shall be submitted for review by the Technical Review Committee. Comments from the Technical Review Committee should be addressed and incorporated in the development plan. I'm going to be about 2 minutes.
Okay,
I'll
because I
go
got
through
another
it.
fellow that wants
Thank
to
you.
speak. Yes.
Sorry, and I appreciate your, I think we just have one other speaker. I'm going to go back to the screen. This is the discharge point of North Lake. It's a well-designed stormwater basin, and it has interceptors to catch the development. But does that give you an indication of how much water is really going to eventually come through that site? That's pretty substantial. There's already been water. There's no stormwater. There's really nothing tied into it yet, but it's mostly a Jefferson County stormwater. That's North Lake itself. I contend that this was done without approval by the Planning Commission, these items, and to bring water from Jefferson County into Oldham County. This is the waterfall that got me started in the MS4 Phase 2 program. That's the end of the presentation I have. I got 2 other little handouts that I'd like to address the comments that were made by the applicant. I would propose, but bottom line is that I would propose that if there's any binding elements, that the gravel strip, and I probably should go back to that screen, but the gravel strip that is on top of the, are you going back to the, okay. This is the stub road right here, and I believe that that's in, and I could be wrong, but there's a gravel road, I believe, that's here. And the problem with this stub road right there, if I go back to the large map, that stub road drops everything back into that stub road. There's a gravel road. There's a gravel piece right here. And I'm not sure if the stub road is shown there or shown where I just touched it. But that stub road drops traffic right back into, trying to draw it. the intersection of Highway 1694. That will do nothing to help and let other properties develop back in the back. I'm not against development that'll take place. It's gonna occur. It's just we need to do it in a planned manner. I believe too much time has gone by, time's expired in terms, in my opinion, that the extensions shouldn't have been given. You all, the Planning Commission, gave up one of your responsibilities to the planning director to be able to grant extensions. And it's also, hey, you know, that I have been asking about the extensions. I wrote several letters about not granting the extensions because of so many things have changed, because there's so many other things that we wanted to accomplish. Thank you all for letting me run through this as quickly as I could, and I appreciate your all's efforts and what you all have to go through every single day as one of us.
Thank you, sir. Other gentlemen? Your name and address for the record also.
My name's Joel Turner, and I live at 1173 Hidden Creek Road in Prospect, Kentucky, which is at the very back of the Hidden Creek subdivision. I've lived there for 30 years, actually 33 years now, and I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to talk to the ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission. Bob has laid out some of the many concerns that we have back in Hidden Creek. I'm a member of the Hidden Creek Homeowners Association Board of Directors. I've been off and on the board for over 30 years. This is not a new issue for us. We've had two proposed subdivisions on just a portion of the Oldham and Jefferson County part of Carl Fisher's farm, where they wanted to put in 400 units. And that happened twice in the past 10 years. And neither one of those were approved. And the main problems with those were traffic, and another thing, sewer. Those are the big issues for the developer. And the flow of traffic now, as compared to when this first application was made in 2005, is significantly different. Many of you know that in the last 12 years, the population of Oldham County has increased by over 40%. Nobody anticipated that kind of explosive growth in our area. Most of that growth is within 3 or 4 miles of the Jefferson County line. Okay, so you're going to see a concentration of the population along the Jefferson-Oldham County line, and this is another example where a highly concentrated subdivision has been proposed. The technical extensions of this proposal have expired, and they're still coming back to you now with a great sense of urgency. No small area study or plan has been developed for traffic. We don't know what's going to happen when they put these units in and block off that one potential avenue of egress from our subdivision. And we have 20 units back there. It's conceivable that on Mr. Fisher's property, he could have 800 units with only Schuler Lane to service them. Can you imagine what the traffic would be like at St. Mary's Academy at 7:30 on a Monday morning, Tuesday morning? They have traffic control there already. Add 800 units back there. Add another 250 units in the Hamlet section of Oldham County's Norton Commons subdivision, and you've got over 1,000 new units.
Mr. Turner, I interrupt you here, but that's speculation. You know, we don't know that. What we're addressing today is their proposed development.
Well, even if we have only 257 units, which is in their planned unit development, they have no Oldham County access. That avenue that goes along St. Mary's that was shown in the presentation earlier is not sufficient even for those numbers of cars with the traffic that's going through that area by St. Mary's and St. Bernadette's at 7:30 in the morning. I can tell you because I drive it every day. Okay. So that stub road, by the way, as Bob said, only goes through Mr. Fisher's farm and does not address other property owners in the area and their desire to develop. Now, Mr. Bell has 130 acres at the end of Schuler Lane, and that's landlocked. It's in Jefferson County. Now, I don't know what his family's plans are, but there are 5 or 6 residences back there now, and if they were to decide to develop that property, that would also flow into Schuler Lane, which is a 1.5 lane road for 1.5 miles from 1694 to the entrance of our subdivision. So my main concern is the traffic. Norton Commons has shut down Chamberlain Lane. That was one of two areas where people could flow out from Oldham County and have access to Highway 22 or Highway 1694. You'd have to go under the underpass up by the Costco development on the right, and that's where you'd have egress to 22. That's been essentially cut off. Yes, you can drive through Norton Commons if you want to slow down to 15 miles an hour and stop occasionally because there's not sufficient room for two cars to pass. Those roads are so narrow. And I think that was done because they do want to have a walking community. But that doesn't help emergency vehicles that need to get back into the area behind that development in the Schuler Lane area. And, you know, what if 1694 got shut down for some reason? How would emergency vehicles and school buses be able to find their way through Norton Commons when those roads are so narrow? So, this hamlet subdivision, the first portion of it, they proposed 111 units. They mentioned a school board letter that's going to, or I'm sorry, Oldham County Board of Education letter that's going to be submitted. It's not signed yet, but it's been submitted in draft. Number of residential units, 111. Now, this is a big home area of Norton Commons. The homes are going to be 3, 4, and 5 bedrooms. They're going to be, according to the 2005 proposal, $400,000, $500,000 homes. They're probably more like $500,000, $600,000 homes now, because 10 years has passed, 12 years has passed. I think you need to challenge the assumption that there will be 36 additional students that come from those 111 units. That's 444 bedrooms are going to produce just 36 students. I think that's a questionable assumption. If you extrapolate out, staying focused, Mr. Jeffries, on just what's been proposed, 257 units would be about 85 students. That's 1,000 bedrooms will produce 85 students. I challenge you all to investigate the capacity of the schools to handle that many students that may come out of those 1,000 bedrooms. Now, we're not talking about an unattractive school district. We're talking about the opposite. This is why people would want to live in the Oldham County part of Norton Commons. It's an attractive option. I would venture to guess some of the Jefferson County people that are living there now will move into this section at some point. So, those are the two main issues that I find are challenging the credibility of the Norton Commons proposal. And I would implore you to address many of these unanswered questions. Consider what the contiguous land use is going to be. Do a small area survey and plan for development. Consider the access in and out of there, and defer this approval until the future so that these questions can be resolved. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone else here that wanted to speak, either have questions or speak in opposition to this application? Okay, let me ask the commission here before we get into our questioning. Do y'all want to take a quick recess? Because it's going to be a little bit of time before we get in, complete this application. So y'all want to take just about a 10-minute recess, and then we'll come back and move into our questioning of the applicant. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
There's a lady sitting in the very, very back with her husband with the oxygen mask on.
Okay.
She works at the bottom.